Oh.
Right, welcome back everyone. Just moving on to our next talk, which is from one of my colleagues here at Cardiff University again. So Cherylynn Silvia is going to give us a quick talk around Cardiff Data Professionals. And I think probably with such a short time, it's better for Cherylynn to introduce everything herself. So over to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for virtually attending. I'm going to talk through the genesis of the Cardiff Data Professionals, its progress, the advantages it provides for the individual and the university. Just to note that this is more of a process thing than a tech thing, and the bio on the program leaves out two important words, which is joined Cardiff University's IT department in March. Before that, I was in strategic planning, so a lot of this happened prior to me joining IT. And so some of the references are around data analysis, but the process itself and the framework will cross specialties. Also have an ongoing tree metaphor. Just don't look at it too closely, but appreciate it. So the seed for the Cardiff Data Professionals, which I'm going to call CDPs sometimes because it's shorter, happened in 2014 when the business intelligence team realized that the same conversations were happening in different spaces. So they were having similar conversations with the HR department as they were with registry, for example. And so what they decided to do, they had lots of informal conversations in these various areas, and then started bringing them together to have collective conversations about how to better manage data. One of the results of this is they created a collision space Monday afternoons where they could essentially, it was a place to work, and they didn't need to be working on something together. It was just a place to work, to have those sort of accidental water cooler kind of conversations, because we work at quite different places in the university. So just giving us that space to meet each other. And this actually turned into training sessions, which were usually interdepartmental training sessions. So someone from admissions would come and talk about, what they were doing in admissions. When I first joined the university in 2017, these Monday afternoon training sessions were incredibly essential to sort of getting me up to speed, because I came from NHS. I didn't really have any higher education knowledge, and sort of the context that I got from that and the people that I met through that made it me able to do my job a lot faster. So there was agreement from the people who were involved at the time that this was a really, really useful process. And that's really important because a lot of what the Cardiff Data Professionals are, it's a communal initiative. And so I keep trying to come back to that because that's a really, really important underpinning. Being that I wasn't even around for most of this yet. So in May 2017, when I was moving from London to Cardiff, there was a proposal paper agreed by our professional services board, which basically laid out the birth of the Cardiff Data Professionals. It put in place things like the fact that the director would nominate you. So your director nominates you to essentially give their voice into this network. One of the ways they do that is through prioritization of what the BI team is actually delivering. Because the BI team only knows what sort of gets fed into as far as what the wider university is doing. And also the sign off that gives them the space to go to the Monday afternoon training sessions, because it's the realization that the context is incredibly important. And it's not, not everyone isn't expected to go to all sessions, but there'll be some that'll be incredibly useful for you. One of the other things that was put in place were yearly professionalization days. And what these were is we had Andy Yule, who at the time was the head of HIDIP, which is the Higher Education Information Improvement Program, I think. But he was also formerly director of data policy and governance for HISA. So he comes every year, he gives a presentation at the beginning about data practices. And this one, this section is, we invite school managers and senior management. It's quite a large spectrum who come to this presentation, and it's all about improving the understanding of data practices. And then we have an afternoon session, which is just the Cardiff Data Professionals, and they and we talk about what we talk about the issues that we're having, what sector best practice looks like, what we want to do to improve things. What does good look like? So out of the 2018 version of this, we decided that we needed a task and finish group. And this was primarily to address common standard for reporting and analysis, because we work in so many different areas, we were doing things in different ways. But actually what we ended up doing were things like aligning competencies, identifying competencies, and with one of the outputs being trying to align them to training. So you could look on the competency map and say, well, you know, I'm sort of here, but I'd like to be here. That means I need more training in this particular area. But it also developed a requirement script. One of the things mentioned at the professionalization day in 2018 was that there was sometimes a discrepancy between what was actually provided and what the person who it was provided to actually had wanted. And that's because there were a lot of steps in between. The very senior manager and the person who did the report. So we pulled together a requirement script which identifies, you know, where the data is coming from, what the caveats look like, how good the data quality is, etc. Part of this is about sort of removing the magic curtain. That's not quite the Wizard of Oz reference, but trying to make the process that we go through more transparent. So the requirement script has a feedback mechanism by which you could email a summary to the person who you're actually giving this report to say, you know, this is the time frame I'm expecting it in, these are the caveats I have around the data, etc. And it's to increase the awareness of what the data process actually looks like. One of the other things was we're aiming to reduce duplication of effort. So what this requirement script has, it's basically a SharePoint list. Well, it's a SharePoint form that creates a SharePoint list so you can search to see if anyone else has done similar analysis. Or if someone else has done if someone else has done something similar, it may be that there's a definition that you want to use on the same basis. So it's about reducing duplication and creating consistency. The other thing the requirement script supports is a peer review process. So depending upon whether it's going external or it's going to high-level meetings or it's a completely new transformation of the data, the requirement script will actually flag whether or not it should go to peer review. And what this does is it ensures that more than one person understands that analysis that we've deemed to be important for one reason or another. But it also, at the end of it, you have a standard annotation, which has things like data quality, caveats, etc. And that gets put on the report itself. And we've actually been liaising with our colleagues in governance to be looking for this watermark wherever there is data submitted to senior level meetings. So that's been happening, which is great. There's also been increased awareness of what the CDPs are doing. They tend to underpin rather large projects. The biggest one is our confirmation, clearing, and adjustment process, which has data professionals from the colleges, also our business intelligence team, admissions, residences, the SIMS team, registry, corporate systems, comms. So it's quite an interdepartmental project that is underpinned by data professionals. Also, a couple of years back, we had to change the way that we code courses from using JAX to HECOS, which probably doesn't mean anything to some of you. But I was sort of the liaison point for that quite early on in my new job. But because I had been meeting with these people through the Monday afternoon training sessions, we formed an incredibly cohesive team, and we did an incredibly robust and lauded transition, and actually ended up presenting in various forums about it as well. HECOS holds a special place in my heart. So in 2019, we realized that at the professionalization day in 2019, we realized that our task would never quite be finished. And so we operationalized our task and finish group. One of the other outcomes of that was the desire to have a data strategy, and that ended up being a data strategy and policy. And there are 5 authors on that, and they run across 4 different teams. Just again, to point to the sort of communal nature of what we try to produce. There are currently 94, actually since I wrote this last week, there are 96 now, CDPs across all professional services departments. And in 2019, we won the Higher Education Strategic Planners Association Award. The award was nominally for Strategic Planning Team of the Year, but actually what the submission was about the Cardiff Data Professionals and how the interdepartmental working was actually better supporting the university. So that was quite cool. Going forward, we are rolling out the data strategy and the data policy, which essentially identifies the importance of data as an asset, highlights the need for transparency, robustness, and improvement, including around data collection and the related systems. And again, this is about trying to highlight the problems that we have and push towards making them, getting the space to be able to fix them. That has, the data strategy and policy has been approved by our professional services board. It was meant to be reviewed by our executive board last week, but because of Corona, it's gotten pushed a bit. One of the other things we're working on is formalizing the competencies that we've developed to link up to the PDR, because we have some Cardiff Data Professionals who are being managed by non-Cardiff Data Professionals, and giving them the competencies to sort of work through as what they should be looking at next is something we want to do to sort of further encourage that. And just our blue sky aim is about improving data literacy across the university. And in part that's already happening. I had some really fun conversations when I started identifying data quality as being really poor. And it was, and we've fixed it since then. But at the time it was the best data that we had. But because of the requirement script and the peer review process, we were able to have that discussion and just raise the level of awareness around that, which is great. So our general guiding principles are about communication, which is about, it's kind of about like the magic that happens when we talk to each other. There are so many conversations I've had where I at the time, it seemed like a completely pointless comment, but it ended up linking up to something else I was doing later that became incredibly important. And it's because you've made that connection, you now have someone else to talk to about it and actually make it reality. And essentially, none of this would ever happen if we didn't talk to each other. And the second point, it would be transparency, because if we're not honest when we talk to each other, again, nothing would really happen if it wasn't saying like, actually, this data that I'm working with is shite. How are we going to fix it? You know, that's an incredibly important part of our process. And robustness. And one of the things about that is about trying not to limit what we want to do by what is actually possible. Because a lot of the things are, well, we want to put all of this, we want to put this structure in place, and it might be that, well, that's not going to happen because we're going to get pushback from here. It's like, but it's about trying to work as much with a blank slate, and then pointing out what we want to do and adapting it to what we can do. And we've done a lot more than I think you know, anyone had ever thought of when this all first started. And the other really important part is that I always think of us as an autonomous collective and start sort of quoting Monty Python in the back of my head, help, help, I'm being repressed. But it's the complete opposite of that. We are a self-organizing system. We identify things that we want to fix, pull other people who want to fix it with us, and you know, do our absolute best to make things better. We have an operational group, but it has we have a head of the network, and she is our liaison point to our data information management oversight group, also known as DIMOG. But she doesn't chair the operational group. The operational group has a rolling chair, which we sort of maintained by having a unified facilitator throughout, who liaises with the different chairs to sort of maintain that consistency. But it's really important that we try to get as many people engaged and as many people to support the operational group as we can. So that's been fun. So the benefits are a risk reduction. We have a risk around decisions made on poor management information, which we are working hard to continually address. So that, yeah, so it's the peer review, just the improved structure and unified of how we do things interdepartmentally. There's improved analysis because in addition to being trained by each other, usually, we also have contact points if we want more context on a particular item or not. Quality control through the peer review, resilience because we have less siloed working, and again, the peer review enables that there's always someone else who knows what you're doing. But also, even without that, we're unifying processes throughout many departments, which means that, you know, if someone in one department ends up getting it, you know, moving on, or winning the lottery, you know, there's someone else who at least vaguely knows the processes that underpin what's going on in that area. And improved data literacy because we're trying to be more transparent and trying to show people the importance of data processes and good data processes. For the individual, it's improved well-being. Then I've had a couple of colleagues say, you know, particularly during like the HESA return time where it's incredibly stressful for people, saying it's incredibly important to have this network of people who know how difficult this is, and to be able to talk through various issues that they're having. And training, obviously, it has been incredibly helpful. And also it gives us an amplified voice because we are, you know, very self-organizing and reasonably autonomous. You know, there isn't sort of a hierarchy to whose ideas are better than others, and people can sort of just join the network and actually become incredibly vocal. And that's happened in a couple of instances, including me. Yeah, so yeah, it's incredibly helpful. Just a couple of acknowledgements. None of this would happen without the members of the Cardiff Data Professionals. I joined in 2017, so a lot happened before me. Alison Powell is the head of our network. She's the BI business lead as well. And she's the person whose brain I mined to get the information that predates myself. John Britton was, at the time I joined, the head of planning and intelligence, and he was quite instrumental in supporting this and pushing it through from a more senior level. And our business intelligence team continues to host the technical side of what we do, but also they're a really useful central point because they deal with data from all across the university. So that they help sort of promote what we're trying to do. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
That's absolutely perfect timing, Cherylynn. Absolutely spot on. I think there is at least one question there, so I'm going to hand over to, I'm going to get this wrong, aren't I? So Iola, who's moderating this morning. So do you want to pick up the questions first, please?
Hi, yeah, there's one question here from Steve Moore. Do you think something like this would be beneficial across Wales, maybe a Welsh HE data professionals network?
I would absolutely love that. I had a friend of ours, a friend and colleague, recently moved from Cardiff to a different university in England, unfortunately. And I was kind of like, take this, make it happen over there. Let's have a big party. So yes, I would absolutely love that, and I would be happy to talk to anyone who'd be interested in trying to push forward something like this. Although I would need to be pulling in, you know, as I said, I wasn't there for the very beginning. So I will help as much as I can, but I know my colleagues would be happy to help as well.
We have another question. With regard to the competencies, is there any plan for any kind of accredited CDP training?
So, I mean, the first level of that is that we currently have it get import into our HR system. So it is actually so it's getting fed back into the PDR process. So, I mean, accreditation would be great. It's a couple more steps down the line, I think. But actually, there are some sessions that we do that we pull in external people that actually is sort of officially CPD accredited. They're just it's not as many as the ones we put on. As it's not a large number of the ones we put on.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if anybody's got any more questions, if they want to throw them into the Q&A pane. I mean, maybe I could just pick up on that, Cherylynn. Do you feel that, well, you perhaps haven't been around long enough, I don't know, but do you feel that the general level of knowledge of the people involved in this is building up, as I'm assuming there's lots of use of applications and that sort of thing that they need to learn?
Yeah, I mean, it's two-sided. Like the training sessions end up being two-sided. So one side is the context of what's happening in the different areas, because a lot of that will impact what you're doing. But the other part is the technical side of new things that come up. So we just did a number of sessions about statistics and R, because that was something that a couple of our colleagues were really into, and it's about sort of increasing the awareness of what's out there for everyone. So yeah, I mean, at the moment, it is just the people who know new things and want to share it. So I mean, but the possibilities are kind of endless, as long as at least one person in the network knows about it.
Well, I suppose that's the idea of a network, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stats wouldn't be my topic of choice, I must say, but certainly a necessary evil, if I can put it that way, in the area that you're working in, of course.
Yeah. I mean, the training was incredibly helpful, and I mean, even just R, which can be used for stats, but can be used for a lot of other things as well, was quite cool. But yeah, I mean, it has infinite potential.
Good. I must have a look at R, because so many people mention R and I haven't got the faintest idea, even though I'm actually in training. A lot of people say, do you do anything on R? And I say, no idea. So one day I will get round to looking at that one. Right. I think possibly then we have run out of questions. There's a few comments in the chat saying thank you very much. So obviously that is the virtual clap in, but if anybody wants to join me in a little clap, then thank you very much to Cherylynn for joining in there.
Yeah, and I think the slides are going to get circulated later. So if anyone has any questions down the line or wants to contact us about trying to do this locally, then either email address is fine.
Great. Yes, I believe we will be trying to put them up probably on the website or something. It's all happening very quickly in the background, but
Cool.
we will get there. Thank you very much, Cherylynn.